My name is Brian Schaefer. I'm the current president of Ukon Water Company. We'd like to welcome you to our virtual stockholders meeting. And I want to thank you for your participation in our stockholders meeting this year. Due to the current COVID-19 pandemic and the governor's recommendation for our state, we will do our part to make this year's annual stockholders meeting happen. The board of directors have chosen to hold a virtual stockholders meeting. Our virtual stockholders meeting will be presented in two parts. The first part will be a video presentation. You'll hear a report from each board member concerning the company and also a brief presentation from our engineer. And they will be in this order. Clorinda will read the minutes for your approval and vote to approve. Matt Peterson will give a maintenance and construction report. Brian Hess will give an audit report. Brody Calder will present the finance and budget report. Larry Hess will discuss the master plan that we have undertaken this year, and then we'll have Kent Jones of Jones and Associates present his presentation on the master plan, and then I'll follow up with the president's report. This year there's going to be three important things that you as a stockholder will need to vote on. Number one, we'll have to have you vote on the approval of the minutes. Number two, we have two board members whose terms are up and will need to be voted to. We'll have to have nominations to put two new board members or the same board members, however you choose to do. Those positions are Larry Hess and Brody Calder. The terms of Brody Calder and Larry Hess are up for election. We will be accepting, and get this, I want you to understand that this is going to be a vote by mail this year, and so we're going to be accepting nominations until the 23rd of December. And that will mean that you'll need to submit a written nomination to Clorinda or one of the board members by the 23rd of December. And then the third item that we'll be voting for is we'll vote to approve how many shares of treasury stock to sell, and we will ratify the price of the treasury shares. You will receive a ballot in the mail with the nominees for the board of directors and the other items to vote for by December 28th. You will need to return your ballots to Clorinda Wood by January 8th. And then the second Saturday of January, we will hold a brief Zoom meeting to give the results of the voting. I encourage you to watch this video presentation to become familiar with the issues that you will be voting on. If you have further questions after watching this video, feel free to contact a board member by phone or in person. The second part of the virtual stockholders meeting will be the January 10th, or the second Saturday in January at 10 a.m., and it will be a Zoom meeting. At this meeting, you'll learn the results of the mail-in ballots. And with that explanation, we will hear the reports.
The Ukon Water Company shareholders meetings held Saturday, January the 11th, 2020 at 10 a.m. in the Fielding City Office Building. The prayer was offered by Wayne Lamb. The minutes were read by Clorinda Wood. A motion to approve the minutes made by Brian Schaefer and second by Dave Schaefer, and all in favor. The president's report was given by Larry Hess. The company is doing well, and we are striving to improve it every year. We're working on finding new water. This year we're placing a new line to use the well to its full capacity. We have a good relationship with the state, which keeps us informed, in line, and answer all our questions. This year we passed their sanitary survey. The Bear River Water District has also been very supportive and good to work with. Matt Peterson reported on the maintenance that has been done this year. We replaced part of the main line by Bill Crockett's in East Garland and 60 feet along the highway. Starting installing the electronic meters, cleaned one of the ponds, made repairs on the well and the old main and the old Ukon spring, replaced and upgraded the line to a 4-inch to increase the flow. We purchased a shed to store our own materials, which is placed up by the reservoirs. Carl Mackley from the Bear River Water Conservancy District reported that the Division of Drinking Water is proposing to change their fee schedules this year that would introduce new fees that they would assess public water suppliers for not meeting certain regulations. These fees act as fines. The Conservancy District also has an updated water agreement with Deweyville Town, which will allow the district to receive an additional 100 acre-feet of water each year through the district's Collinston system. 50 acre-feet of water of this would go to the Ukon Water Company with an amended agreement between the two parties. The district is actively pursuing their own source of water for the Collinston system by drilling a test well, a small production well. So far, this well has not produced for the district. Mr. Mackley made the shareholders aware of developments related to the Bear River being developed. In late November, the Division of Water Resources released a report on Bear River development activities, which has the potential to affect all of the county. Bear River Water Conservancy District has an allocation of up to 60,000 acre-feet a year of water for this project. However, the cost will be enormous. Kevin Garn asked when the district will be drilling for the wells they put in for. Carl said those wells haven't been approved, but the 5 applications have been filed or approved. Wayne Lamb asked if we have a storage facility for water not used. Carl said we have existing storage facilities in place. The Collinston system has storage for over 1 million gallons. Wayne also asked how far out are we from addressing the dam issue. Carl recommended to look at the Bear River report for more information, but it may take 30 years. Carl assured us that Bear River Water Conservancy District is not out to take over our water system, but are careful to fill in the gaps where needed. They act as a blanket to provide any water needs the county has. Brian Schaefer complimented the Bear River Water Conservancy District. He presented slides of how our water is used, what we're using, and how we plan to use it in the future. On average, one connection is using a half acre-foot of water a year for domestic use, which is in line with the state. An acre-foot is 326,000 gallons. The first chart showed the total gallons used in 2017, 18, and 19. 2018 was a heavy use water year. The significance in this chart is that Ukon Water is very consistent in using our allotment from the mountain and what we use from the Conservancy District. 68% of our total water use comes from the mountain or springs. 32% comes from Bear River Water Conservancy District. From the Conservancy District, we have used 85% of our allotment over the past 3 years and left 15% or 40 acre-feet. A copy of these charts are attached to these minutes. The Conservancy District will have 50 acre-feet available for us to buy. We will put a contract in place and change applications that need to take place. The Board of Directors would propose a portion of this water be sold as a common stock share, which would be priced higher than a treasury stock, which you can invest and put to your use whenever you see fit. Another block will be sold as treasury stock, with same rules apply to them. Brian wants us to feel confident that this company has a bright future. We have certified operators and we meet the qualifications and standards of testing to stay viable. We have filed on 250 acre-feet of new water. Ukon Water owns a 1 acre site by the tower on exit I-15, which is the same elevation as our tank here. We attended a hearing and felt optimistic the water would become available to us. Brian reassured this board has a vision for this company and not to be consumed by the Conservancy. They are working hard to provide viable water for our community. If that water and well come into play in the next few years, we will have several years to plan and get a tank to make the infrastructure happen for our community. In the meantime, we are finding new water to meet the needs and demands that are upon us. We are doing the best job we can to find new water and look to the future. We have a contract in place to have an increment of 5 acre-feet of water to the year 2035. This 50 acre-feet is a one-time addition to that contract that is already in place. We are in the process of negotiating that contract right now. Brody Calder explained the infrastructure has to grow as we get more shares because we cannot fund ourselves, which is what we are currently paying, plus adding shares. We have to sell the shares to get enough money to be able to fund out and have the infrastructure to build and supply for each Ukon shareholder. Brody complimented Brian on his diligence in working for this company. He has spearheaded all the finding of new water, including the 50 acre-feet, the 250 acre-feet application, and other findings that are on the docket by applying and finding more in new water. Wayne Lamb asked about commercial developing coming in and how they contract for water. Brian explained the developer has to figure out how to get it. Ukon is not set up or in a position to provide for water for commercial use. Brody Calder went over the balance sheet, which are attached to these minutes. Checking account has $3,000, money market certificate $211,000, so current assets are $214,000. Accounts receivable $35,930. Other checking assets with Edward Jones CD $196,949, and inventory at $2,075. Total other current assets are $199,025. Current assets at $449. Fixed assets at $199,592, giving a total assets for the company of $649,320. We have no liabilities or debts. The equity addition paid in capital is $379,441. Opening balance equity of $1,400. Retained earnings at $153,986. Stockholders' equity $114,491. Total equity $649,320. Making a total liabilities and equity equal out to the total assets. Profit and loss. Our ordinary income is $166,897. Our expenses are $220,000. Net income is minus $53,975.51. Brody explained in the past, we have been using the selling of shares to cover some of our repairs and maintenance expenses. Those funds were currently incorrect, giving us a net loss. Selling of shares is not income. It is to be set aside to build infrastructure. In 2020, estimate expenses will mirror what expenses in 2019 were. When over the excess water use change of fees, we have been charging overages after 12,000 gallons. Brody reviewed over 14 other companies surrounding us, and they are on a monthly billing system. They look at excess rate fees and break it down into how much gallons they use. We'll be charging 25 cents for each 1,000 gallons used from 6,001 to 9,000 gallons. 60 cents for each 1,000 gallons used from 9,001 to 12,000 gallons, and $2.25 for each 1,000 gallons used from 12,000 plus. This is voted by the board. Annual dues will be due April the 30th. After April 30th, there will be a $50 late fee plus a monthly late fee at an annual interest rate. Stock assessment fee is changed from $50 to $60. System access fee is changed from $200 to $225. Recent study on the 14 local city prices averaged to $512 a year. Currently, we have been paying $225 a year. We are less than half of the current average of our neighboring communities. Matt Peterson made a motion to approve the budget as presented. Brian Schaefer seconded the motion, and all approved. According to the bylaws, these changes are voted by the members of the board. See Article 12, Section 1. Shareholders may vote on the number of shares to be sold, the price of the share, and the non-refundable fee of $500 if the treasury share is not put to beneficial use within the year. Derek Euler made a motion to sell 10 shares of treasury shares, and Matt Hess seconded the motion. All in favor, no one opposed. The board proposed to sell 10 treasury shares at $10,000. Chuck Earl made a motion to sell the treasury shares at $10,000, and David Schaefer seconded the motion. All in favor, no opposed. The board recommends a $1,000 fee from the $500. Wayne Lamb made the motion to accept the proposal to change the non-refundable fee to $1,000. Chuck Earl seconded the motion. All in favor, no opposed. Board will make the change in the bylaws. Blaine Spot would like the stockholders to be part of the fee changes like the assessment overages. Brody explained, like any private firm like Apple, shareholders don't tell them what to sell their phones for. It would take a change in the bylaws to make that change. Blaine Spotton made a motion to change the bylaws stating that any change to the fees for the next year get approved by the stockholders. Brian Schaefer said that we would need an attorney to write up the specific language. Then at the next stockholders meeting, it would have to be voted on. Then that change could be made to the bylaws. Chuck Earl and Derek Euler disagree. No one seconded the motion. The election of new board members. Terms are up for Brian Schaefer, Matt Peterson, and Chad Chambers. Selection for nominations for board members are Chuck Earl nominated Matt Peterson, Derek Euler nominated Brian Schaefer, Michael Harmon nominated Ed Smith, Michael Harmon nominated Spencer Garn, Brian Hess nominated Derek Euler, Mark Larson nominated Chad Chambers, Matt Hess nominated Brian Hess. Motion to close the election made by Vicki Dean. All in favor. The shareholders voted for Brian Schaefer, Matt Peterson, and Brian Hess. Motion to close the meeting made by Matt Hess and second by Mark Larson. All approved.
Some of the projects that we've done this past year, We've put in approximately 20 new meters to service new houses. We've put in all electronic meters, and that will help save us a lot of time and money in the future. Some of the line extensions that we've done this year, coming off of Center Street going south on 3rd West, and also on 1st West going south from 3rd South.
Hi, I'm Brian Hess. It's been my privilege to serve on the board since the start of 2020. Early in the course of 2020 as a board, we met and discussed a few things that we felt would be important to obtain some professional consultation on. One of which was to identify a civil engineering firm who could help us with research and development of a master plan, which will be presented to you throughout these recordings. The second was to obtain a financial audit of the company and our financial activities. And to do this, we hired Davis & Bott CPAs to carry out the audit, and I've been asked to give a reporting of the audit. As the financial, as 2020 financial activities are still ongoing, we provided Davis & Bott with the financial statements of 2019. And so there are a few key items that we as a board would like to share with you regarding the results of that audit. And then again, this will be for the 2019 financial year. Okay, I'd first like to share with you the statement of activities for the year ended December 31st, 2019, which is essentially a profit and loss statement for financial activities for the year. First are the water system revenues. Access fees, service fees, water usage, etc. This totaled $180,328. Next are the expenses categorized as water delivery expenses and administration expenses. Delivery expenses totaled $234,874 and administrative expenses $7,991 for a total expense of $242,865. So if you do the math, we ran a deficit in operational income and expense of $62,537. If you'll recall, at the 2020 annual stockholders meeting, the board members instituted an increase in system access fees, as well as the implementation of a new tiered water usage overage fees, utilizing the new electronic meters and monthly meter readings. Now, this is the financial data that was used as the catalyst to make these changes and make these recommendations. While we realize that it's frustrating for many of our system users to have their fees increase, we hope that this objective data will help you understand why such changes are necessary and why continuing to run a large operational deficit is going to be unsustainable for our water company's future. The next thing I'd like to share and point out is the issuance of water shares. In 2019, water shares were sold for $8,500 per share, and 10 shares were approved for sale. During the course of the year, as per company bylaws, 2 shares were not put to meaningful use. Therefore, they were repurchased less $500. So $1,600 went to repurchase those 2 shares. They were then resold again at $8,500 for a net profit of $86,000. This is, again, revenue generated from the issuance of treasury stock. Now, despite $86,000 of treasury stock shares sold, we only realized a net increase for our financial year of $23,463. And again, that's because for years past, the sale of treasury stock has gone to offset the deficits of our operational income and expenses. A key financial directional change that has already been initiated by this board of directors is to see that the profit from the sale of treasury shares is no longer used to offset operational deficits, but is to be used as capital to invest in future water supply research and development of water system upgrades, and the future sustainability of our water system. As you see the presentation of our water system review and master plan, we hope you will be able to understand and support these financial principles. In conclusion of the audit, the purpose of the audit is for the accounting firm to offer an opinion on the company's financial statement. I'm just going to read right from their report. Since the last audit of the entity in 2007, fixed assets additions Since the last audit of the entity in 2017, fixed asset additions were expensed on the financial statements instead of capitalized. There were also contributions from developers that were not included on the balance sheet. Fixed assets were calculated based upon the best information available. However, these records were not available. Due to insufficient records to verify fixed asset additions, we were unable to determine whether the fixed asset balances and depreciation expenses are materially correct. In our opinion, except for the matter described in the basis for qualified opinion paragraph, the financial statements referred to above present fairly in all material respects the financial position of Ukon Water Company as of December 31st, 2019, and the changes in its net assets and its cash flows for the year then ended in accordance with accounting principles generally accepted in the United States of America. We as a board appreciate your support. We are welcome to fill any questions that you have. A full report of the financial audit is available through the company secretary and is available for your review at your request. Thank you.
Hey everyone, hope you're doing well. This is Brody Calder, one of the board members for Ukon. Just wanted to go over a couple things on the income and expenses for the company for the year of 2020. Most of my stuff is year to date, so there will be some adjustments that will be made as the final month ends out. Most of our stuff is just still underway in regards to the income for the company. There's still a little bit more to come in and a few expenses as well. But I thought this would be helpful for you to understand where we are as a company, what we've been doing on a few of these aspects. So we'll get started over here on the expenses for 2020. As you can see on here, we've got our column B, the highlighted cells are the ones that are the actual figures. Column C, the 2020 expense that was estimated at the beginning of the year and where we ended up. So there were a couple of items that were a little bit higher this year that we expensed out more than we have in years past. And that was because the board, we decided to make a couple of decisions to try to help the company in its progression this year. We had allocated a little bit more money into accounting this year. So we got the accounting audit that was done, as Brian Hess has reported on, which was a huge help for us to be able to understand and to know where we are as a company, where we're headed, and what things are going on in regards to the financials of the company. And for you as shareholders to know and to understand and have confidence in the numbers. That's one thing as well to help and reiterate that confidence for us as shareholders to know how the company is operating and where it's at. Another expense that we allocated for this year that we had in years past was engineering fees. We have these engineers who are doing a fabulous job. We've hired Jones & Associates, and you'll be hearing from them. They have created a master plan for us to help us to know the direction and things that are needed for our water company to continue to progress and to be able to grow in the current changes of our current situations of the state needs. And so as we're evolving, we need guidance and direction as board members to make good decisions. And so we have asked for these two firms to help out as well. Other areas of help, as we've had an attorney to help us out and to overlook a lot of our legal things that may need questions or answers for the company. As you look forward in the 2020 items, there were a couple things that were up a little higher. The Conservancy District water went up more than we anticipated. This is due to us purchasing more water so that we can have more availability to help the progression of the company go forward and reach the revenues that we're hoping to see to make it so we can get the company to where, as you'll hear soon of the master plan, to get to those areas that are needed for the company to be at. As well as we had meter installations. We were able to finish those out this year, which was a huge blessing for us. We were used to only having 2 to 3 meter readings a year, and now we're up to monthly meter readings, and that's because these are all done digitally, which is a huge help for the company to be able to know where things are at and what water usage is taking place. Repairs and maintenance was not as high as we've seen in years past, and that's due to because we've put most of that into meter installations this year. And so that's why you'll see a little bit different on the estimated for 2021 when I get there, why it's a bit higher is because we're not going to be doing new meters this next year as they're already in, and we'll be putting those funds towards repairs and maintenance to do some of the projects that we've needed to be done in the past. So just going forward, our 2020 expenses year to date is at $235,738, and there are still a few expenses that still have to come through. Our estimated was at $227, and so we are just a little higher on the estimated expenses. On our 2021 estimated expenses, there's only a couple of areas that we might have some increases, and that'll be the concerns district water. Under our agreement with them, it does go up every year, and just by a little bit. Other ones that we might have an increase on would be potentially our labor, as we've agreed to hire on another person to help out, and Brian Schaefer will be going over that. A couple other areas, as I talked earlier, the repairs and maintenance will be one as well that you'll have to look forward to, as well as some of our other ones that are just new to our expenses are the legal fees and engineering fees that will be new to our expensing. Also, when doing things with the engineers, they've requested to have a mapping program to go forward. That'll help us to save time and alleviate some of the stresses to know where certain things are through GPS coordinates. And so our total expenses for the end of 2021 are estimated to be around $270. Quite a bigger jump, but we're going to have quite a bit more income next year, and so we'll go over that right now. For the year of 2020, we have our water, excess water. It's currently at $31,798. Now that is not fully accounted for yet. We still have quite a couple months still to come in that we don't have final analysis on, and so we won't have that until the end of the year. So we do have some more revenue coming in there. Installations are up this year. It means we've had some other shares that have sold that were private shares that sold to others, and we had more installations happen. So that increased revenues there. Late fees were not as much as we had anticipated, and neither were our service fees. Stock assessment fees went up, and so did the system access fees. This is all due to the installations going up because we have more people on the system access and stock assessments to be able to increase those revenues there. So that did help out. Currently, year to date, we're at $236,000 of revenue, and we had anticipated $231. As you can see here, our revenue of $236 and our expenses of $235. These are still in the green, I guess yellow here on the screen, but $510, which is good. And we'll continue to get more revenue coming in, more than any of the expenses we have going out at the end of the year. So we should end the year positive, but just slightly. Next year, we have estimated $55,000 in excess water use and $50,000 in installations, and our late fees still close to the $4,000 and service fees of $8,000. We have stock assessment of $48,000 and our system access fee of $110,000. And these will be increased because of the more shares that we anticipate will be coming onto the system. So our total revenue will be right around $275,500, which will allow us to have a gain again this year, for 2021. We do want to be running in the green. We don't want to be running in the red to be able to make sure we are balancing our budget. And that's what we've been asked to do. And that's what my position has been asked, is to oversee the finances of the income and the expenses, make sure that we stay on budget. And so hopefully you found this helpful, and I appreciate you taking the time with me today.
I'm Larry Hess. I'm a member of the board with Ukon Water. I've been asked to talk about our master plan that we've revamped this year with Jones & Associates. Part of the master plan is we were able to GPS all our water meters, all our valves. We now also know we GPS all the fire hydrants also. We know where the water lines, we've done a map with all the water lines, what size they are, so that we know where we have to replace lines if we need to. You know, with knowing how the valves are, we can just look on our master plan and go shut off the valves to isolate leaks that we have. We got an update on our master plan of all the size of water lines that we have in the system. We also have an update of our water source and the amount of water where we bring it up off the hills or from Bear River Water District. We have 2 locations that we bring water in from them. We've also were able to get the big storage tank up on the mountain, is now credited with the state for us to have storage off of that reservoir, which is a 500,000 gallon reservoir, which really looks good with us. If we need that water in an emergency, we can bring it in. The master plan is a great tool that we now have to help us do our jobs better. Thank you.
Good evening, or today, or whenever it is that you see this. My name is Kent Jones with Jones & Associates Consulting Engineers in Ogden, Utah. Earlier this year, the Ukon Water Board approached our firm to do an upgrade of their master plan along with some other engineering services and asked that we prepare this presentation for the benefit of the shareholders at this virtual meeting. We're sorry that we can't be there to answer questions in person, but at the end of the slide you'll see my name and number and you'll be able to do that. I'm assisted today by my son Brett Jones, who also has helped with the master plan work. Want to say how much we appreciate the Ukon board. They've been great to work with. They work very hard for you and they have some great ideas as we move forward to the future. So I'm going to have Brett move through these slides to give a little overview of our work. The first slide is one of our wonderful products, actually. We've been able to assist the water company with a brand new GIS-based water system so that we know exact locations of water lines, fire hydrants, valves, meters, etc. It covers such a large area, you won't be able to see a lot of the detail, but it's been very helpful and it's a work in progress to keep this map up to date and accurate. I want to use this slide to give you a basic orientation to the water system. You'll see a little dashed line, which is the service area of the Ukon Water District, which is 4,154 acres. It's a large area. Inside of the district is Fielding Town in this location, and it covers 336 acres. So about 8.6% of the service area is actually the Fielding Town. Now I'd like to point out some of the facilities of the water system. There's 3 basic water supplies for the Ukon system. The first, we have a series of springs up Cottonwood Canyon that have been there for many, many years. We have a well from the Ukon well that's near the reservoir. And then we have the 250,000 gallon reservoir. Unfortunately, some of the water quality for the springs and the well doesn't quite make the standards for state drinking water. So the water company's been able to work with the Bear River Water Conservancy District to blend their water with our water, and then the quality is acceptable. So also at the reservoir location, we have a blending station. So we can blend the Bear River water with our water, and then it goes into the system. We also have down at the far south end at 12800 North, another meter station where the district delivers water. So we have 2 locations where the district gives water into the system. And just for orientation purposes, this is SR 30 that goes through the district. I'll do the next slide, Brett. So in the water system, we have 3 basic elements. One is the water supply, water storage and distribution. I'm going to take a minute to go through each of those and our findings. Next. So again, the three sources we have are the springs, the well, and Bear River Water Conservancy District. Next. Now, what's important is in a water system, the water supply has to meet the demands of the peak day, that there's enough water going into the system to make the demands for that day, as well as a volume for the entire year. And so right now, you can see the relative values of the springs, the well, the district, that we can get about 325 GPM in any peak day during the summer, which in this year was in July. Next. I also want to show that on an annual basis, we need to have the water supply we need. I want to do these pie charts to show you the relative difference. Now, during 2017 and 2019, the bulk really of our water supply came from the springs, supplemented by the well, and about 37% came from the district. Now, as we move forward, the water board has been successful in negotiating a brand new contract with the district, in that they'll get an additional 5 acre-feet per year up to the year 2035. So 2035, approximately, we'll have about 60% coming from the district at that point in time, assuming that our wells and springs do about the same. But in either case, we have adequate water supply for several years to come. Next. So here's kind of a summary. During the peak summer use in 2020, we're using about 566 gallons per day per connection. And that's what we use to design things against then. Now, what's very interesting that we found out was when we're not in the irrigation season, it was 326. So it jumped by about 75%-ish during the summer. Now, that's very important because it shows that there's a lot of outside water use. We really want to minimize that so we don't use the very valuable culinary water, drinking water, outside on lawns and other irrigation systems. So we found out that there is significant outside water use, and we want to minimize that in the future. Next. So we just ask ourselves, well, what will this future look like? And using the numbers that I just showed you, we have enough water supply now to serve about 812 connections. Right now we're at about 441 to maybe 450. And there's several outstanding shares that people have purchased over time but are not connected to the system. In fact, there's 228 of those. So if you do the subtraction, we feel like right now we have available enough growth with our water supply, less the previous commitment to these shares, to serve 143 connections. Next. I kind of wanted to look at some growth in the system. This is just something of interest to you. Over the year from 2017 to 2020, the average growth rate is about 5% a year. That's in the order of 25 connections per year. Now, the state uses a term called ERC, or Equivalent Residential Connections. So when we talk about connections in the system with the State Drinking Water Division, things like the dairy, the schools, they use more water than a typical connection, so they're counted greater, and that's why we're in the 500 range up here versus the 400 that I showed you previously. But we don't know how that growth rate's going to continue, but it's a pretty good growth rate the last 4 years. Next. Okay, so once we use up what we have, what's the long-term options? First of all, we could go to the district and buy more water. Now, we don't know if it'll be available or not. They'll have to develop other sources themselves. Option number 2 is pretty interesting. Ukon, years ago, bought property, I'll show you in a minute where it is, on the other side of the valley, and applied for water for a new well in that location that has 250 acre-foot per year, which would give us another 400 connections availability in long-term basis. We think that's a good option for future water supply. Or number 3 is we could take this option and work with the district together and joint venture that major project. Next. So this shows that potential west well. Here's I-15. This is 14400 north. Here's the district here. There's about 2.5 miles of trunk line it would take to get from that location. We know there's good quality water there, and so they have a piece of property that was purchased years ago with a lot of foresight. It's exactly at the same elevation as our other reservoirs, so they'll work perfectly together. So we can drill a well there, we can put a chlorinator, we can put a reservoir, and then pipe that water into the system. The other forward-thinking thing is there actually is a casing under I-15 to allow that major trunk line to be connected to the district. So somebody did some really nice long-range thinking before it makes a future water supply available to the system. And as I indicated earlier, about 400 more connections are available through that. Okay, Brett, next. So water storage is the next thing. If we look at the 812 future potentials, I just wanted to show how much water storage would be required if there was no outside water use, okay? Right now we have about 280,000. If we have outside irrigation, of course, we have to have a lot more, 746. This is a point that I want to give kudos to Brian Schaefer, your president, for his great work with the district. Because if you remember that 500,000 gallon or 500,000 gallon reservoir in that first slide, that is the district's. Brian was able to work with the district and the Drinking Water Division, State of Utah, to reserve that reservoir for our use. Now, we won't own it, we won't operate it or maintain it, but it will be allowed to be storage just for us. That is a big deal because that gives us 780,000 gallons of storage. And you can see here, even with a lot of outside irrigation, we will still have plenty of storage. So because of Brian's great work, we're in great shape on storage. And then if the new well goes in, it'll have its own storage. So storage is very good right now in the district there, in the water company. Next. Okay, going to the distribution system, here are just some interesting facts. Here's the different sizes of water lines. 26.3 miles of water mains in your system. That's a lot of area to maintain. We have 49 fire hydrants, 123 valves, and 457 meters at this point in time. I'd like to point out something that's really important, that the Drinking Water Division, for any system that serves hydrants, should be a minimum of 8 inch, okay? Some of our 6 inches are pretty good. But if you take 4 and below, they're very small and undersized. 37% of your system right now, we would classify as undersized. Now, it doesn't mean that you can't get your daily water. You will be able to. But if we have a fire or some other major draw in the system, those small lines will not be able to provide the water supply and the pressure and the flow that is needed. So that's just a little summary of the system. It works fine now, but it does have lots of undersized water mains. Next. I want to talk about fire flow just for a minute. In small systems like Ukon, fire flow is always the thing that governs pipe sizes and water system analysis. And as I said before, the Drinking Water Division normally likes 1,000 gallons a minute and 8-inch mains. Now, local fire authorities can change that, and in Box Elder County, for you as the Ukon system, that the marshal says 500 gallons a minute is sufficient. So we went and did a computer model, next slide, and this is one of the products for the system, we can do a simulation of some what ifs. So what if there's a fire here, or what if there's a new development there? Then we run this computer model and it'll tell us what the pressures and flows are throughout the system. And so I just randomly looked at some places here in the system, and up in the Fielding town area, we're pretty good. We're 500 or above, but down on this far end, we've got like 150 gallons per minute, where we have some real small diameter lines. So those need to be kind of looked at in the future. And any fire hydrants that are on this system with the district will need to be connected to that, not our system. Wanted to point out we have one service up here on the far east side that as we run these fire flows, it drops to about 20 psi, which is the minimum that the state drinking water requires in the system. So in the case of a big fire, it might run out of water totally, and these would go up a bit. But you're in pretty good shape with the 500 gallons a minute with some improvements in the far south end. Next. Okay, there's a lot of information on this slide. I'll try to make it brief. One of the tasks that the Ukon board has asked us to do is to look at the value of a water share. And in the future, they may convert from water shares to impact fees for brand new connections. And so they ask us to look at how might we value a future water share or a future impact fee. So in our opinion, those fees should be based on future water system improvements needed for new development. And so that's what we have here. So if you'll think back to that slide on the west well, if we try to add 400 new connections, that's beyond the 143 we've talked about. And we did this project, which is the west well, and then we've got a significant number of mains that need to be upsized for future development. We're over $5 million in future cost. And so we take that $5 million and assume that we build the system and finance it. If we just did the well and reservoir and chlorination and trunk line, it's about $14,100 per connection. If we did all of it and financed it, it'd be about $22,300 per connection. So this just gives the board some numbers to start to look at to see the range of what an appropriate value for a share or a future water impact fee ought to be. So this is still being studied, it's being talked about, but this is the basis then of how we would do that. So next slide. So here's just a few takeaways and conclusions, is that you're really good on your water supply at this point. You can get another 143 connections approximately. We think that the board should continue to study what's going to happen after that. I mean, you can have 20 or 30 new connections every year, and it won't be long until 143 will be used. So then what? What do we do? And so the board's looking at that, and the primary thing is buy from the district or develop the west well. And we want to make a point, the future outside irrigation should be limited as much as possible. We don't want to use our valuable culinary water for irrigating outside. So as new people come on or new developments, we'll do everything we can to minimize that outside water supply. Existing, we have all the storage we need for the 812 connections, and as we do further supply to the west, we'll have sufficient there. So storage is very, very good. Fire flow is generally sufficient. There's a few areas that need some upgrade with the small diameter lines, but we're pretty good there. And then this last one, the water board should continue to study the monetary value for future water shares and or future impact fees on an annual basis and adjust as necessary. Every year we should look at that, see how we're doing, if it needs to be adjusted with inflation or what happened or the needs in the district. So we're trying to get to something where there is a monetary value attached to each share or impact fee. So those are some of our basic conclusions. And the last slide, Brett, just my name, Kent Jones, Jones and Associates. Here's my email, there's my cell phone number. So if you have comments or questions, you can contact me directly, or you can contact a member of the board and they can talk to us and we'll work together. We're continuing to work with the board on a variety of issues, and we've just enjoyed it very much and hope that this virtual presentation will be adequate and that you will understand where we're at with the district. You're in good shape, but there's future planning that's needed. Thank you.
Your board of directors is responsible for things such as meeting EPA regulations, system maintenance, state testing requirements, budget and finance, are just to name a few. Operating a water company is a very complicated thing, and I would like to thank the board members for their dedication and service on behalf of our water company. I would also like to thank Derek Euler. He has been helping the board of directors this year with special projects, offering his expertise in areas such as legal and finance consulting. Thank you for your service. Clorinda Wood, the company secretary. I can tell you that she does not get enough credit for the work she does for our company. And I know she is taking way too many unhappy customer calls. Clorinda, thank you for your service. Special thanks to Mark Larson. He is retiring this year, and we'd like to thank him for his service as system operator the last few years. And Mark has also, we'd like to thank Mark for his years of service on the board. He's been a very valuable source of information and dedication to the company. I can't even tell you how long Mark's been on the board. He and I started at the same time, and it's probably about 20 years that he's been with the company at least. Another person that I would like to thank is Scott Sandel. Our elected officials most often never get credit for a job well done. I would like to publicly thank Scott Sandel, our state senator, for attending and making public comment on behalf of Ukon Water Company with the State Division of Drinking Water. The State Division of Drinking Water had proposed a lot of new fees and fine changes and fines that would have cost our company and all small water companies in the state several thousands of dollars each year. With Scott's help, we were able to get the Division of Drinking Water to back away from the new fee and fine structure. With Mark's retirement, we will be hiring a new system operator. I expect by the time you view this video, we will have a new system operator. Watch the webpage for more details. The new system operator will be working for our company as well as for Riverside North Garland Water. Ukon will pay half the salary, and Riverside North Garland will pay the other half of the salary. This way, the system operator can get a few more hours a month, making it a more appealing and efficient job. As I stated in the beginning of the video, you have some important decisions to make this year. Number one, the approval of the minutes. Number two, the election of 2 board members to serve 2-year term. And according to the bylaws, it is the duty of the stockholders to decide how many shares of treasury stock to sell. And number 4, to ratify the price of the treasury shares. Items 1 and 2 I've covered previously, and now I would like to spend some time talking about the 3rd and 4th item. The Board of Directors have studied in depth these very two important subjects, and we have spent a fair amount of resources creating and updating a master plan so that we can talk educatedly about these next two subjects. Brian Hess has given a report about the audit for our company. A third party has scrutinized our finances and operating procedures. According to the audit, you can rest assured that Ukon Water Company is a very sound and well-managed company. Larry Hess and Kent Jones of Jones and Associates have presented the findings of our master plan. The master plan gives Ukon Water Company a comprehensive roadmap to aid in the planning for the future. We can now know with confidence that our current water system can serve an additional 144 connections. These connections can be served and connected with no additional infrastructure and no additional expense to the company. We have sufficient infrastructure to supply these 144 connections. We also have the data to support the valuation of treasury stocks that we're going to present. And I encourage you, if you haven't, to review Kent Jones' discussion on the master plan. With much consideration and review of the master plan and the current market value of water connections in the area, the Board of Directors has determined the price of treasury shares to be sold in 2021 should be established at $15,000 per share. This isn't an arbitrary number that we've pulled out of the hat, but we have studied the master plan and what it will take to provide a future infrastructure for future needs of the company, and this number, 15,000, is the number that will best help us meet and reach those goals in the future. So I would ask for your affirmative vote to ratify the price of the treasury shares. Ukon Water Company has 79 shares of treasury stock remaining on the books. When those are gone, we will have to reevaluate the way this company is doing business, how we provide water to new connections. But for now, we have 79 shares, and we would like to talk about those shares and how to disperse them. After careful review of the master plan, the Board of Directors is recommending and asking for your approval to sell the remaining 79 outstanding treasury shares. And we're not asking that we have a lottery. We're just asking that you give us permission to sell at any time the 79 treasury shares. And in no way do we anticipate to sell all the shares immediately. We expect that these shares will be sold on an as-needed basis, about 10 to 15 connections per year. All rules contained in the bylaws will apply to the purchase of the treasury shares. Namely, the shares must be put to use within 1 year, or the share will be purchased back by the company at the original price less $1,500 admin fee. And they will be used for a new connection only. If approved, a person wanting to build a home would no longer need to wait for an annual stockholders meeting lottery to hope to obtain a share of water for a connection. The shares could be available upon request, and they could go to the county to get their building permit so that they could build without hesitating or waiting for a share to come available. Another huge advantage to making these shares available is taking advantage of a very active housing market at this time. And by doing so, we could bank a substantial amount of money for the future needs of the company. Striking while the iron is hot, I think we would call that. Choosing not to sell the shares will not slow or halt the growth in the area. For instance, the subdivision behind Fielding Elementary School couldn't get enough connections from our company to build the houses that they desired, and so they drilled culinary wells to complete the subdivision. Bear River Conservancy District will provide water to Brookside's Ranch in East Garland if Ukon Water Company chooses not to sell enough water shares to meet the needs of that subdivision. So with that, I'm just asking and hoping that you'll make a good decision, think about it. Your board of directors has studied it very hard and would recommend that we make these shares of 79 treasury shares available immediately in January, and then they will be available upon request with the same rules applied as they were before, as we discussed. And with that, I'd like to thank you for your participation in this year's stockholders presentation and meeting, and we'll conclude with that. Thank you.